In 1981, deep within the Vatican's marble corridors, a papal letter vanished hours before the world changed forever. 3 decades later, during preparations for his canonization, an archivist uncovered that same sealed parchment, its words seeming to predict the very moment of sainthood. Candlelight trembled against the gold leaf walls of the Apostolic Palace as Rome slept beneath a veil of fog. The scent of wax and old paper filled the small chamber where a pope's final letter was written, and then mysteriously disappeared. For decades, believers whispered that heaven itself had hidden the message. Some said it contained a warning, others a promise of redemption. When the sealed letter resurfaced 33 years later, its words would pierce through time, revealing a prophecy no one expected, the day of the writer's own canonization. Why was it lost? Who protected it? And what divine purpose could conceal a message meant for the Church itself? By the end of this story, you'll understand the truth buried within the Vatican archives, where faith, prophecy, and silence intertwine. Welcome to Bible Stories and Mysteries. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. The rain had ceased, yet St. Peter's Square still gleamed like a mirror beneath the lamplight. The air smelled of wet stone and candle smoke drifting from the open chapel doors. Inside the Apostolic Palace, the corridors breathed a silence too deep to be ordinary. Father Luciani, a young papal secretary, walked quickly, the soles of his shoes echoing against the marble. In his gloved hands, he carried a sealed envelope, thick parchment, warm from the wax that still bore the crest of the fisherman's ring. He had been told to deliver it personally to the congregation for the doctrine of the faith. No copy existed. No one else had read it. The letter trembled slightly in his grasp, not from fear, but from the subtle vibration of the bells above. The 9th hour striking in the dome of St. Peter's. The bronze notes rolled through the night like waves, fading into the drizzle that still whispered against the windows. In the papal study, the Holy Father had just extinguished his lamp. Only the flame of a single candle remained, trembling beside a crucifix. He had spent hours writing, pausing often, gazing toward the dark window where lightning had flashed earlier that evening. "Send it tonight," he had said softly. "If it waits till morning, the world may change before the ink is dry." Luciani bowed and left with the envelope pressed against his chest. He never reached the delivery office. Crossing the Hall of Clement, he stopped, sensing a cold draft that did not belong to the building. The lamps along the corridor flickered. The echo of his own footsteps vanished, replaced by a soft whispering, as though invisible hands turned pages in the dark. He called out once. The sound was swallowed by stone. When he reached the end of the hall, the door he had just locked behind him stood open. A candle lay fallen on the floor, its wick still burning, the wax trailing like blood. The letter was gone. He searched the corridor in panic. Nothing. The guard on duty swore no one had entered. On the desk remained only a trace of red wax and a faint scent of frankincense, something sacred yet sorrowful. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be brought to light. Luke 8:17. At dawn, the report was filed. Document misplaced. Cause unknown. That same afternoon, the Pope prepared to greet the crowd in St. Peter's Square. The sun broke through the clouds at precisely 5 p.m., bathing the balcony in gold. Father Luciani stood in the crowd, praying silently, the weight of guilt pressing against his chest. Moments later, a shot rang out. The world knows what happened next. The chaos, the cries, the blood on white vestments. But what few remember is that only hours before, a letter meant to remain sealed had vanished into the silence of the Apostolic Palace. That night, while surgeons fought to save the Holy Father's life, Father Luciani returned alone to the study. The single candle still burned, untouched by wind. He sank to his knees before the crucifix, whispering, "Forgive me, Lord." The words were lost before the world could hear them. The flame quivered once, as though in answer, then the wax collapsed, extinguishing itself. The room descended into darkness, and with it, the secret of the missing letter, buried beneath the weight of faith, fear, and divine silence. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, thunder rolled again over the Tiber. The bells of St. Peter's tolled midnight, and in that distant echo, it was said that one could almost hear the scratch of a pen upon parchment, as if the letter was still being written. 33 years later, the Vatican morning opened in pale light and echoing footsteps. The air carried the weight of incense and history. Pilgrims gathered outside the basilica, whispering prayers for the canonization of the late pontiff, beloved, wounded, and now to be called saint. In the depths of the apostolic archives, Father Gabriel Moretti adjusted his glasses beneath the amber glow of a reading lamp. Dust swirled above stacks of parchment, each marked with crimson seals. He was cataloguing relics for the ceremony, one document at a time, obedient, meticulous, alone. A single bulb flickered overhead, humming softly. He reached for a folder on the upper shelf. The moment he pulled it free, something thin and wrapped in linen slid out and fell to the marble floor with a hollow thud. He crouched. A folded parchment lay before him, edges brittle, wax cracked by time. At first, he thought it a duplicate, but when the seal caught the light, he froze. The red imprint was unmistakable, the papal crest of 1981, the crossed keys and ring of the fisherman. Father Gabriel's hands began to shake. He peeled away the linen wrapping, careful not to disturb the wax. The parchment smelled faintly of candle smoke and myrrh, a scent no archive could preserve for decades. On the upper right corner, faded ink read a date, May 12, 1981. His breath caught, the day before the attempt on his life. The archivist sat in silence. The world outside roared with celebration, but down here, beneath the basilica, time felt suspended. He whispered a prayer without sound. Then something impossible. The air shifted. The candle flame nearest the parchment bent sharply, though no door had opened. A whisper of Latin moved through the corridor, too soft to name, too clear to dismiss. Sub sigillo Dei, under the seal of God. The words seemed to bloom from the very stones. He rose slowly, scanning the corridor. No one was there, yet he felt watched, peacefully, not by man, but by memory itself. He placed the letter inside a glass case, sealing it again, this time under his own authority. His note read, "Found during canonical preparation, to be examined post-ceremony." But the more he tried to continue his cataloguing, the stronger the thought pressed against him. Why now? Why, after 33 silent years, the span of Christ's life, should this parchment reappear? He left the chamber and crossed the courtyard toward the basilica. Outside, the city bells were ringing for vespers. Above him, the evening sky flared red, the color of sealing wax. In the shadows near the colonnade, a woman was lighting candles for the late pontiff. Her whisper reached him faintly. "Mercy waits for those who remember." Her face was unseen when he turned. The candles flickered, and she was gone. That night, back in his study, Father Gabriel placed the sealed letter on his desk. The wax shimmered faintly in lamplight. He tried to pray, but no words came. He took a small notebook and wrote one line, "The letter that was lost has returned on the eve of his sainthood." Sleep would not come. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the same vision, a hand in white robes placing the letter on an altar, and a voice saying, "This shall rest until the church is ready." At dawn, he found his study door ajar. On the edge of his desk, written in chalk, was a Latin phrase. Letters scrawled as if by a trembling hand. "Non omnis moriar, I shall not wholly die." The candle beside it burned low. The wax melted into the shape of a cross. Father Gabriel fell to his knees. He felt neither fear nor disbelief, only awe. In that fragile moment, He understood. The letter had waited, not for discovery, but for resurrection. And somewhere within the stillness of the Vatican, unseen by human eyes, a door hinge creaked softly open, as though another secret had just decided to return. The small reading room of the Vatican archives was cloaked in morning haze. Light entered through stained glass in muted gold and rose, tracing the shape of crosses along the floor. A single window stood open, and the distant toll of bells bled softly through the air. Father Gabriel sat at a long oak table, the rediscovered parchment before him. 3 others were present: Sister Amara, a linguistic historian, Monsignor Petrovich, a theologian of prophecy, and Dr. Rinaldi, the conservator entrusted with handling sacred documents. The seal was intact. It should have remained closed, yet Father Gabriel felt compelled, by duty or by something older than duty. He reached for the candle, its flame steady despite the morning breeze. Then, gently, he broke the wax. The sound was small but absolute, like the breaking of time. Inside were 4 pages of aged parchment, each written in the Pope's unmistakable hand. The ink had not faded. It was as though the words had been protected from decay by faith itself. Sister Amara began reading in Latin, her voice trembling. When silence becomes the language of the Church, the Spirit still speaks through wounds. They exchanged glances. The text continued, describing a vision seen in the hour before dawn, of a white square shadowed by smoke and a heart pierced yet unbroken. Petrovich whispered, "This refers to St. Peter's Square," but Gabriel shook his head. "Read on." "I see a cross overturned by violence, and yet from the wound a light that does not end. The one who falls shall rise again through the faith of those who pray for mercy." The room felt smaller. The sound of their own breathing seemed too loud. It wasn't a general meditation, it was prophecy, written before the assassination attempt. Dr. Rinaldi's hands trembled as he turned the second page. Ink lines formed the image of a date. May 13th, the day of the attack. "Tomorrow the shepherd will face the blade, but it shall not cut what heaven guards." The parchment crackled in his hands. None spoke. The words were unbearable in their clarity. Sister Amara whispered, "It's impossible, unless—" Gabriel answered softly, "Unless he already knew his suffering was chosen. He will live. For the mercy of God has chosen to reveal through pain what the Church has forgotten, that the cross is not defeat, but promise." The last paragraph was written in smaller letters, as though the writer's hand had slowed, as if he had entered prayer while writing. "In the year of my glorification, let this letter be found. For holiness is not born in triumph, but in the silence of surrender. When the bells of Rome sound together, know that what was written in blood has turned to light." Silence. No one spoke for several minutes. The candle flickered as if exhaling. Outside, the bells began again. 3 slow tolls echoing from St. Peter's. Petrovich crossed himself. It foretold not only the attempt, but the canonization itself. Sister Amara's eyes filled with tears. 33 years between the writing and the sainthood, the life of Christ. "Do not be afraid of them that kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul." Matthew 10:28. Father Gabriel closed the folder gently. If this is authentic, we are holding a bridge between prophecy and obedience. He turned the parchment toward the light, noticing faint impressions between the lines, letters so thin they were nearly invisible. He warmed the paper over the candle, and hidden ink emerged, revealing one more sentence: "Let it sleep until my name is spoken with the saints." The candle hissed. The letters faded again. A low hum filled the air, the kind of resonance found only in sacred spaces when the divine and the human brush against each other. Sister Amara whispered, "Who hid it?" Gabriel looked toward the dark corridor leading to the lower archives. Perhaps not who, but what. Maybe the Church itself was protecting the letter. from our fear. The air turned cooler. A breeze swept through the room, rustling the parchment. From somewhere deep below the archives came the muffled sound of a single bell, one not heard in decades. They froze. No bell was scheduled to ring. The sound lingered, hollow and metallic, until it faded into silence. Father Gabriel placed his hand over the letter and whispered, "If you have returned to speak, let me hear what time could not silence." The candle guttered, then straightened again. The next morning, he would descend beneath the archives to follow the sound of that bell. But for now, the prophecy lay before him, glowing faintly in the half-light, as if heaven had just written its final sentence. Dawn came muted over the Vatican roofs, a thin mist rising from the cobblestones. The world outside celebrated sainthood, the square below filled with flags, hymns, and pilgrim chants. But deep beneath the apostolic palace, Father Gabriel Moretti walked in silence, holding only a lamp and the sealed letter. The air in the lower archives was colder, ancient. Each step down the spiral staircase sounded like a heartbeat. The smell changed too, dust, stone, and something older, like myrrh soaked into the walls. He had discovered in the archive registry a reference to a forgotten chamber once called Crypta Angelorum, the Crypt of Angels. It had been sealed after the Second World War, its purpose erased from official maps. The registry marked its last entry in the same year as the letter, 1981. At the final landing, Gabriel found a corroded gate. Iron vines curled around its bars, half swallowed by candle soot. A Latin inscription stretched across the arch, Veritas sub terra mane, truth remains beneath the earth. He lifted the lamp closer. A wax seal, identical to the papal crest, had been melted across the gate's lock, hardened over decades. He hesitated. Was he meant to open what time had buried? With a deep breath, he pressed the sign of the cross to his chest and whispered, "In lumine tuo videbimus lucem." In your light, we see light. The iron gave way with a groan. Inside stretched a chamber lined with stone niches and wooden crates. Each box bore a name, a date, and a seal. Some were cracked, others untouched since the 19th century. The air pulsed faintly, like a place that remembered prayer. He knelt to read the nearest label. Confessio non lecta, confession unread. Beneath it, another inscription, handwritten, almost invisible beneath the dust, Sub sigillo Dei, the same phrase he had heard whispered in the corridor. He set the papal letter on a table and raised the lamp. A spider web glistened like silver thread over the shelves. As he brushed it aside, his hand struck something solid, an unmarked wooden chest bound by rope and a clasp in the shape of a cross. The rope crumbled under his fingers. Inside lay dozens of letters identical in size and color to the one he had found, each sealed with the same wax crest. None bore names, only numbers. He realized with a chill, this was no accident. Every pontiff, every generation had written such letters. And all had been hidden here, in obedience to a tradition older than memory, a ritual of silence beneath the church itself. Father Gabriel whispered, "How many prophecies sleep here?" A faint wind stirred, though the air should have been still. The lamp flickered violently. Then, from deep within the chamber, came a sound, slow, deliberate, the toll of a bell. Not the bronze thunder of St. Peter's above, but a smaller bell, close and hollow, ringing once, twice, 3 times. Gabriel turned toward the sound. At the back of the crypt, beyond a curtain of cobwebs, hung a rusted bell suspended by chain. No hand touched it, yet it moved. Its motion stopped when he stepped forward. Silence fell again, heavy and absolute. He lifted the lamp. Behind the bell, a mural had been carved into the wall, angels weeping over a letter set upon an altar. Beneath them, a line of Latin read, Ex silentio oritur fides. From silence, faith arises. He understood. The letters were not forgotten. They were offerings, confessions of vision and doubt, sealed until the church could bear their truth. He bowed his head. So the silence is not neglect, it is mercy. At that moment the flame steadied, casting long shadows across the mural. The angels seemed to move in the shifting light, their tears turning to rays. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Father Gabriel returned to the table and placed the rediscovered letter among its silent companions. Then he knelt, feeling the stone cold beneath his palms. Lord, he prayed, if these are words meant for a time beyond ours, teach me to wait. The lamp flickered once more and dimmed. A current of air passed through the crypt, extinguishing the flame. Darkness reclaimed the chamber, yet the faint outline of the wax seal still glowed red. From far above, the bells of St. Peter's rang for evening mass, the sound echoing down through earth and stone, finding its way to the crypt of angels, and to the man kneeling there, listening. He opened his eyes into the dark and whispered, barely audible, "What else sleeps beneath this silence?" And somewhere in the darkness, something answered, not in words, but in the trembling of the earth itself. Rome awoke beneath a sky the color of gold leaf. Pilgrims filled every street, their rosaries glinting in the sunlight. From the dome of St. Peter's, banners of the two new saints fluttered like sails. The world was singing. Inside a quiet chamber behind the basilica, Father Gabriel Moretti prepared a reliquary. His task was simple, to secure the newly rediscovered letter in a glass vessel, unseen by the thousands waiting in the square. It would rest near the altar as a private relic, known only to a few. He placed the parchment carefully within the crystal box. The red wax seal caught the first beam of morning light and glowed as if alive. Then the choir began. Latin words rolled through the basilica, Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus. The Pope who once wrote the letter was about to be named among the saints. Gabriel closed his eyes. "You saw this day coming," he whispered. When the ceremony reached its peak, a hush spread over the crowd. The proclamation was read. The name echoed between marble and sky. And at that precise moment, a gust of wind swept through the basilica. Every candle trembled. The reliquary's lid lifted slightly, though it had been locked. A ray of sunlight entered from the high dome and rested on the parchment inside. The seal shimmered. Witnesses later swore they saw the faint outline of handwriting appear above the letter, words forming and vanishing again like breath on glass. Mercy is the handwriting of God. The cameras outside caught the moment. To most, it was nothing more than wind and light, but to those within the chapel, it felt like a heartbeat between earth and heaven. Gabriel knelt, overcome by the weight of what he'd seen. "You have finished what you began," he murmured. "The wind blows where it wishes, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes." John 3:8. When the hymn ended, the reliquary was sealed again. No one spoke of what had happened. The letter returned to silence, its prophecy complete. That night, Rome glowed with candles. Bells rang from every church. Father Gabriel stood alone at the window of his small apartment, watching the river reflect the lights. He thought of the letter buried beneath the altar, and of all the other sealed confessions still sleeping in the crypt below. He wondered whether faith itself was made of such letters, messages written in suffering, hidden until the right dawn reveals them. As he prayed, the wind passed once more through the open shutters. The flame of his candle bent and whispered. He heard, or believed he heard, the same phrase that had haunted him from the first night. Sub sigillo Dei, under the seal of God. Weeks later, a secret commission convened in a narrow room of the Vatican Library. Historians, chemists, theologians, each sworn to silence, examined the letter. Microscopic analysis confirmed it. The ink, the fibers, the wax, all dated precisely to 1981. The signature was genuine. No alteration, no modern hand. But a hidden line, faint as ash, appeared when warmed beneath candle flame. In the time of my glorification, let this be known, not as prophecy, but as mercy. The words shimmered and vanished again. Monsignor Petrovich crossed himself. He foresaw the bullet, the recovery, the sainthood. He understood suffering as revelation. Father Gabriel nodded. Perhaps the letter was not meant to warn, but to comfort those who would one day doubt. The prefect of archives spoke softly. If we reveal it, the world will seek signs instead of faith. If we hide it, the world may never understand mercy. The decision came in whispers. The text would remain sealed, a private testament preserved for the future church. That evening, Gabriel returned alone to the crypt of angels. He carried a copy of the transcript. The old air embraced him like a prayer left unfinished. He laid the new document beside the others, retying the ropes that bound them. One candle burned beside him. The wax dripped in slow tears. He whispered, "Lord, let truth rest until hearts are ready." The flame dimmed as if nodding in assent. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. 1 Corinthians 13:12. When he left, the crypt closed behind him with a sigh of ancient hinges. Outside, Rome slept under a pale moon, unknowing that beneath its stones hundreds of letters waited, words of prophecy, doubt, and mercy sealed by faith. The church, like heaven itself, kept its silence. The years that followed were quiet ones, years of peace, of routine, of silence that only the devout understand. Within the Vatican, the story of the lost letter faded into whispers told among archivists and confessors. The world moved forward, yet beneath the marble, one truth still pulsed like a heartbeat preserved in stone. Father Gabriel Moretti grew old. He never sought recognition for his discovery, nor spoke publicly about what he had read. But those who worked beside him noticed that every evening, before leaving the archives, he paused before a certain shelf, bowed his head, and whispered a brief prayer to someone unseen. When he died in 2021, his small apartment was as immaculate as the man himself. The drawers held rosaries, letters, and a worn leather notebook. Inside it, written in a trembling hand, was one final entry. Mercy is not an event. It is a breath that passes through generations. The words felt familiar, like an echo of the letter he had found decades earlier. After his funeral, the archive staff gathered to organize his belongings. When they opened his final notebook, a loose parchment slipped out and drifted to the floor. It bore a faint crimson fingerprint, the same shade as the ancient wax that had sealed the papal letter. They placed it quietly inside the reliquary beside the original parchment. The two now rest together, prophecy and witness, sealed under glass. At night, the basilica is locked, the lights extinguished, yet the guards speak of a soft glow that appears around the reliquary near the altar, an aureate haze that lingers for seconds, then fades with the first sound of dawn bells. Some claim it is nothing more than reflection from the sanctuary lamps. Others say it is the letter itself, exhaling the last secret it carried. The righteous shall shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Matthew 13:43. Whether miracle or memory, the message remains. The holy are not silent because they have nothing to say. They are silent because the world is not ready to listen. The Pope's final words, the ones hidden for 33 years, had never been about death or prophecy. They were about forgiveness, about the kind of mercy that redeems even the things left unfinished. And now, as pilgrims kneel before the relic, a small plaque beneath the glass reads in Latin, Ex silentio lux renata est. From silence, Light was reborn. Outside, the wind passes again through St. Peter's Square. It carries with it the scent of rain, the sound of bells, and a voice that feels older than the city itself. The faithful who listen swear they can almost hear the echo of a pen on parchment, as if the letter is still being written, even now. In every silence, faith still breathes. And though time may hide what heaven once revealed, grace never forgets. The letter, the prayer, the wound, all become light when surrendered to mercy. For those who believe, the story of the lost parchment is not about the past. It is a promise that hope will always find its voice again. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of dignity and family. And above all, thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul. And before you go, watch the story I leave here on the left. I'm sure it will also move you and make you reflect.